That is a great question. And excuse my faux pas, I was thinking of African American women. There's never been an African American woman governor, ever. And that needs to change. So
Except in D.C.
But again, we have to show and not tell. So I can tell you all day about how you get women elected to office. Let me tell you about the things that I've done in South Carolina. When I inherited the keys to the car in South Carolina, there was really no infrastructure, nothing. We were one of the lowest states in the country in terms of women in elected office. There was one woman in the South Carolina Senate, and she was a Republican. Since I've been chair, there are now 3 women in the South Carolina Senate, and 2 of them are Democrats. And we were just 2 African American women. So I'm very, very proud of that. But a lot of people talk about party building and bench building. Well, I've actually been doing that in South Carolina. We created 2 years ago a fellowship called the James E. Clyburn Political Fellowship, where we are building the next generation of candidates, the next generation of county party leaders, the next generation of campaign staff. And in our first class, we had 32 that we just graduated in September. And I saw that the numbers were off. We graduated to 18 men and 14 women. So I told the staff, we got to change that. This class, 47, representing 33 counties in South Carolina. We have 26 women and 21 men. We are focused. We are hell-bent on changing those numbers in South Carolina. So we've been building that bench and making sure that we get more women elected and trained so that they can run for office and be leaders within our party.
Tom Perez has been spending years representing and fighting for the American people, a consumer advocate, a civil rights attorney, and I feel like now you might get called back to your old job because as of today, we learned today it's a much harder job than we realized, and Tom deserves a lot more credit. Not anybody can do that job. So even though many of us know a bit about you, please, your brief statement, Mr. Perez.
Well, thank you so much for your kind introduction. And by the way, thank you for keeping the portrait of President Obama in the front there. You know, we call that, you know, I call that comfort food right now, okay? Because he will always be my president. And thank you. When I'm in this room, I have such remarkable memories of the fights that we fought together during my time in the administration. The fight for fair pay, the fight for paid leave, the fight to combat discrimination against women, the fight to make sure that home health workers, 2 million women of color on food stamps got access to minimum wage and overtime protections, the fight for immigration reform. So many fights have been undertaken in this room, and so thank you for that. And on November the 9th, it was clear that we had another fight to undertake, and that is to fight to retake our values. Because November the 8th was an undeniably sad day, but November 9th, as we say in the movement, we fall down, but we get right back up. And that's why I got back up to run for DNC chair. Because you know what, folks? We need a leader who can take the fight to Donald Trump. We need a leader who can bring this party together, make sure that we talk to every stakeholder in this party and folks who used to be in the party and folks who are not yet in the party. And we need someone who can be a turnaround person, who can take an organization that has a crisis of confidence, a crisis of relevance, and make it relevant again in everybody's life by leading with our values. And one of our values, folks, is that when women succeed, America succeeds. When we do that, that's how we succeed. We need to change the culture of the DNC. We need to make sure we're not just electing a president, but we're working together to build 57 strong state and territorial and this District of Columbia, State of Columbia parties, and make sure that we're working together to elect folks from the school board to the Senate. We need to make sure that we change the culture of the DNC so that we're including our members. The members of the DNC are among the most underutilized people I have ever met, and we need to make sure we utilize their talents to the fullest. And the final dimension of culture change is making sure we're working with our partners in the progressive movement, like folks here, and doing it even better. Thank you so much. That's why I'm running, to take that fight forward.
talked about the fight and all the good work the Democratic Party has done helping Americans for years and years. But when we look at how people vote, women with a high school education or less over the last 20 years have been progressively leaving the Democratic Party. And when we've done, an autopsy post-November 9th, many women have said, I understand that the progressive movement is a loud and extraordinary voice, but I don't feel connected to it. And whether it's right or wrong, they've said things like climate change, it's not something I think about. Global citizenship isn't something I have the opportunity to think about. And many women voted based on their basic needs. They felt like they needed to make sure their homes were safe, their cities were safe, they could put food on the table, get a job, and get their kids in a good school. They didn't feel that that is what the Democratic Party represented anymore. How are you going to bring those women back while at the same time keeping that progressive movement moving forward and inspired?
I would slightly expand the aperture of your question, because that issue applied to so many people across America. The African American in Milwaukee who felt left out and stayed home. The rural voter in Northwest Wisconsin that I visited last week who said, you all don't respect me. You don't simply ignore me, you don't respect me. And women across America who feel like the party has not been speaking to them. And so that is why we are... Okay. Yeah, it's okay. Okay.
Excuse me, please sit down.
Supporting primary challengers who fight against incumbent Democrats who refuse to resist Donald Trump's agenda, yes or no?
Please respect the forum and the way this night has been organized, and Mr. Perez is going to answer
Secretary
the
Perez,
question.
I will ask again. Will you commit to supporting primary challengers who fight against incumbent Democrats who refuse to fight Trump's agenda, yes or no?
I want to say probably one of the most important things tonight is to respect one another, and let's respect the forum and Mr. Perez answering the question. So please be seated and respect tonight's agenda.
Can you commit to supporting those primary challengers who run against incumbent Democrats who refuse to answer? We'll take that as a no.
We're very lucky that Tom Perez gave us his time tonight, so let's not put him in a difficult position.
Let's go. First of all, folks, thank you so much. Part of the reason I love the Democratic Party, folks, is it's a big tent. And when we have spirited debates, what it reminds me of is Thanksgiving dinner at my house. Because when you grow up in a family like mine that had a lot of viewpoint diversity, we often had some barn burners at Thanksgiving dinner. And then what we always did is we locked arms and we reaffirmed our shared values. And that's what the Democratic Party needs to do is, again, come together, because our shared values of inclusion and opportunity and respect for everyone are what our party is about. And that's why I have been so proud to be a Democrat. My father, in his Ricky Ricardo English, would say, Tom, a Rockefeller Republican is still a Republican. That's what he would say day in and day out, because he understood that the Republican Party, or the Democratic Party, was the party of opportunity. And to get back to your question, and really to get back to these questions, you know what it's about? We didn't make house calls in this past election. We didn't make enough of them. We don't listen to rural America, and that has been an issue for many years. You can't show up at a church every 4th October and call that a strategy for engagement. We can't continue to have this, a society in which we're building more prisons than we are schools and call that fairness. That's not who we are as a nation. And so I believe that our values are the right values, our values of economic security. The reason why we will win is because we are telling those stories. But we've got to make more house calls. We've got to have a 12-month-a-year organizing strategy where we're touching every community and doing a heck of a lot more listening and being together with these folks in solidarity, not leading, but making sure we add value. That's how we succeed.
Thank you, Tom.
Next, we have Peter Picarski of Wisconsin. Mr. Picarski is an attorney, a longtime Democratic progressive activist, and serves primarily as a voter protection counsel. So, Mr. Picarski, you have 2 minutes.
Thank you. My name is Peter Picarski. I'm running for chair of the Democratic National Committee. My appearance here is possible only because a 13-year-old baker's boy by the name of Peter Picarski, who slept in the bakery because he had to fire up the ovens every morning, decided he didn't want his rights violated. In particular, he didn't want the baker who employed him waking him up every morning by beating him with a wooden club. So Peter Picarski immigrated here. It was my grandfather, whose last surviving son we buried on Monday. Anyway, he was fortunate that he didn't have standing in his way a loser, an immigrant basher by the name of Donald Trump, who has also made clear his position on women's rights and what he wants to do to women whenever, however, and wherever he wants. Other than seeing that Donald Trump leaves office at the end of this term, there are a number of things which should be done to protect women's rights. Passage of an Equal Rights Amendment. Support for full investigation, prosecution, and appropriate sentencing in cases of sexual assault. Funding Planned Parenthood. And realizing that women should be able to control their own bodies without interference from men. The DNC can empower and support the next generation of female leaders in our party at every level, from school boards to the presidency. The female candidates I'd like our party to support are ones with vision and enthusiasm, such as a 13-year-old in Texas who can run in a few years, who recently wrote an essay about challenges facing women from an early age. And the start of the quote, which I use with approval, is in the third person. Quote, "She was 5 when she first heard girl used as an insult. She pinched the boy who said it, and that was the first time she got in trouble. She does not have a happily ever after yet. Someday she will pick up a pen and write herself one, because she is me and I am her, and I am a feminist," end quote. This is representative of the young woman I hope will take leadership roles in our party. I ask for your vote if you are a voting member of the DNC. I ask all of you for your support. I thank you for taking the time to attend tonight, and ask you to read my website, Peter4, that's the number 4, DNC.com. Peter4DNC.com. For the principles I plan to use as DNC chair to empower a locally focused grassroots strategy, to understand and use technology to engage with all Americans as we use our resources to protect the integrity of our nation's elections. Thank you very much.
Mr. Picarski, the age-old debate, insider, outsider, establishment, newcomer. Who should we elect to run our party? The insider, the establishment, they don't need on-the-job training. They know the ins and outs. They can hit the ground running and get this party back on track. The outsider, the insiders had their chance and they blew it. We need an outsider, somebody with fresh ideas, somebody who can really take the party in a different direction and reclaim the majority status that we have lost. So, Mr. Picarski, do you think it's more important that we have, as our new DNC chair, somebody from the ranks of the inside or the outside, and why?
I think that it's more important that we get somebody who gets the job done. And whether it's insider or outsider, and I think I'm a little bit of both. I mean, I'm a change agent. I have worked in election protection for the party in Wisconsin and elsewhere for a long time. I am nowhere near the knowledge of the party that many of the others up on this platform do. But I'll tell you right up, it's clear. I haven't run a state party that where Jamie and Ray have. But I think you need a change agent. There are a lot of changes that have to get made. There has to be a 50-state strategy, which I view as a 185,000 precinct strategy. There used to be a precinct leader in every precinct in this country, and that's what our goal should be. It's going to have to start out with a 50-state strategy and build from there. We've got to get people locally involved to decide what is important in their communities, to talk to these people and figure out which of the various elements of the Democratic platform are most important in their community. You take a look at our credo, it's right in the charter. There are a lot of things that this party supports. I mean, from equal pay to an equal rights amendment, a number of other things. There are about 10, 12, 13 listed there. I commend the charter to you, but we've got to get people locally involved. There's a lot of people who demonstrated their dissatisfaction with the current state of affairs when they showed up on January 21st. There are a number, and the question is, how can that energy be channeled? One way is by getting these people involved in the elections which are about to be held to replace the people who were pulled out of Congress and nominated for positions in the cabinet. There are a couple of those races which could be very close, and if those people decided they were going to get out and organize and register people and talk to voters right now, that might reduce the amount of money we need, because people are going from Atlanta around the state in the congressional district involved and talking to people right now every day and turning out the vote for what I hope will be a very good candidate for that seat. I think I got a lot more to say, but I think that's my time's up. So I refer you again to peter4dnc.com.
Sam Ronan. Sam? Born a global citizen, born in Germany. His father served in the U.S. Army. He himself then served in the Air Force, both here in the States and abroad in Japan. And at the ripe old age of 27, Sam truly felt the burn supporting Bernie Sanders and is now an absolute activist. Sam, please introduce yourself.
Well, let's see. I am an immigrant from Germany. I'm a veteran, and I'm happy to be here. Above all, I'm a concerned citizen, and that's why I engaged in this process. You see, when the government shut down, that's when I got involved in politics, because it affected me directly. I was just like every other young person in their mid-20s. They didn't care about politics. They wanted to go party. They wanted to go play video games. They wanted to do whatever it is young people do. But I was in the military, and I saw the government shut down, not because of something bad that was happening, but because a senator and a congressman from my own state of Ohio decided to shut down the government so you couldn't get health care, so the women could not get the contraceptives that they need, so that they wouldn't be able to have safe abortions, be able to choose what they do with their bodies. I saw our country and our Constitution be violated by the very men and women who decided to protect and defend it. And I could not stand idly by and let that happen. So I left the military, despite having a long history of military service in my family. I knew then the only way to engage and to fix these problems was to be involved politically. So I ran. I ran for state representative and I lost because I saw what had happened. For the past 30 years, we have been remiss in our duties. We have forgotten who we are. We once were the greatest party in this country. We were the envy of the world when FDR was president, when we had the single greatest economy and education this country has ever known, and we had the New Deal. Every single man, woman, and child was able to get behind that idea because it was something for all of us. Not just Democrats, not just Republicans, Americans. And that's why I joined this race, to be the American candidate, the one who will try and bring back something for all of us to fight for, a New Deal. And that is what we need. We need a leader. We don't need another politician. We don't need another manager or an administrator for the party. We need statesmen or a stateswoman. Thank you.
Sam, you said before that the DNC made a huge mistake not going all in backing the progressive movement, Bernie Sanders. What example can you give? How can you help convince us that that is the right path going forward? While exciting and inspirational and amazing this movement is, size matters. Why do you believe this mission, this movement can become large enough that it can win some serious elections?
Okay, so new here, give me a little bit to warm up. So I definitely did back Bernie Sanders during the primary. And the reason why is because he was passionate. And he brought many people along with him, young people like me, people who had never bothered engaging in politics before. And that's what we've been talking about all day long, is re-engaging the American people and getting them involved, inspiring them and giving them hope. And on fundamental ways, that is what we've been lacking. Fundamentally, we have not been a democracy for 30 years because people have stayed home, because they felt that their voices were being ignored, that they did not have control of their own destiny. And the proof is that we weren't there. So the progressive movement came at a time where we needed people to get back into the game and be involved. And so yes, I do think the progressive movement is extremely important, but we can't forget those who came before. Just like you asked Peter, do we just have the old guard or the new guard? We need everybody. We need everybody at the table, not just Democrats, not just the millennials, Berniecrats, conservatives, men, women. Every demographic needs to be represented, because it's not enough to just have caucuses. It's not enough to just have separate clubs. Because I look at this room and I see the most talented men and women this party has ever produced. And you come from all backgrounds and all demographics. And I know we're here at the Women's Club, and you have done an outstanding job. You are still fighting for women's rights. You are still fighting for equal pay, for equal work. You are still fighting the same fights that have been fought for millennia, and that's not right. And it's because we have not treated you as equals, as a country or as a society. And that is what has to fundamentally change. We have to all get involved. We all need to get back into the party in our political processes if we want to change. And I believe I bring that. I've had people approach me and say, Sam, your words have inspired me to run. And at the end of the day, that's what it's about. Thank you.
And our final candidate this evening is Robert Vincent Bronnham of Washington, D.C. Mr. Bronnham is the chairman of the Veterans Committee of the NAACP's Washington, D.C. branch and a longtime D.C. activist. Robert, 2 minutes.
Thank you, Councilmember Evans. And I want to thank the Women's National Democratic Club for inviting me. It's good to be here with so many active Democrats, but I'm going to do some face-saving things so that tomorrow when we all leave, I will be able to last a week and acknowledge some great Democratic women, Anita Barnes, Natasha, Mary Ava, Reverend Edel Anderson Holness, and Shelley in the back. You know, I'm saving myself as a man, and Linda, and Linda. It's good to be at the end sometimes. Having heard all the introductions, there's not much more that I can say to add to what has already been said. But I do want to say that more than just expressing support for women and their issues, I got arrested doing just that in the District of Columbia. My number was 24 of 41 who got arrested protesting what the Congress was doing to block the district's laws protecting women's health in the District of Columbia. And I was proud of that. So I feel that I'm more than having rhetoric, you know. I've got the bracelets. Thank you.
Mr. Bronnham, and for all the candidates, in 1993, we controlled the presidency, the House, and the Senate, the Democrats, and nothing happened on D.C. statehood. Nothing happened. In 2008, we controlled the presidency, the House, and the Senate, and nothing happened on D.C. statehood. If the district were the 51st state with 2 voting senators, Betsy DeVos would not be the Secretary of Education. Right? Would not be the Secretary. That's how important this is. Mr. Bronnham, my good friend, and you are for years. If you become chairman of the party, how are you going to advance the cause and make D.C. the 51st state?
Let me think on that for a couple of seconds. We've tried a lot of things to get statehood. We've been close. But I feel there's one critical element that we need to focus on as Democrats, as residents of the District of Columbia, is the very fact that I and 60,000 other veterans in the District of Columbia risk our lives, put on a uniform to defend freedom and justice for many people around the world. But when we come home, when we don't have it on Constitution Avenue, there's something wrong with that. And it is critical that we don't give to these national veterans organizations the lock on veterans. If these national organizations, veterans organizations, cannot support the veterans in the District of Columbia on statehood, then they are not supporting veterans. You cannot say you support veterans and oppose and not stand up for DC statehood. DC statehood is good for America, is good for justice. Statehood for the District of Columbia. Statehood for the District of Columbia. Statehood for the District of Columbia.
Thank you so much. Thank you to the moderators who did an outstanding job. So a hand to both of them. Thank you, all the contestants. And we are ready to celebrate your victory. Thank you. So I'm looking at each and every one of you. We are actually hosting on March 15 a celebration for the winner right here at this institution. So the invitation now is out. Everybody here is invited, and we will all salute the winner. And so thank you all for coming.
Wait, everybody has 1 minute. Everybody has a 1 minute. Yep.
All right, so I jumped the gun.
We're all doing that tonight. Okay. So 1 minute.
So now we have a 1 minute closing, and I've already said my piece. Okay.
First of all, I just want to thank, is this on? Okay, sorry. I just want to thank you for your bravery. Speaking out and breaking the rules is something we're all going to have to get used to. I want to run for DNC chair because we're at a time in our country where our young people aren't doing it the same way that we've done it. There is a new power and a new way of doing things that is inclusive and it's collaborative and it's transparent and it operates fundamentally different than how we've been making our decisions. And I want to bring that to the Democratic Party. We see it in business every day, and until it comes into politics, we are going to continue to be out of touch with the largest generation of voters that we have. I want to build an innovative, resilient DNC for the 21st century, for the 21st century electorate, so that we all can truly take our place at the table. Because women's issues are not just women's issues. Childcare is not just a woman's problem. Equal pay is not just a woman's problem. These are all of our problems. And we need to take ownership for all of the issues that affect Americans. And I'm excited to be the next DNC chair so that I can bring that change.
Once again, I want to encourage you to grab one of these on your way out. Feel free to steal any idea that's in there. I do want to just talk a little bit for a quick second about my record, both as a state party chair and as the president of the State Chairs Association. In New Hampshire, the majority of our officers in the state of New Hampshire are female. In New Hampshire, the majority of our staff is female. At the ASDC, the majority of our executive committee is female. The majority of our staff, well, okay, all of our staff is female. You cannot expect women to rise up if you don't hire them and give them a position. And the answer about how do you elect more women, it's really easy. You got to recruit them, you got to train them, and you got to support them. It's very simple. And if you don't do that, you can't get them elected. The other day, I got an email from a woman who heard me go off the other day. Is that it?
That's it.
1 minute goes fast.
It goes really fast. It was a great email from a woman who was watching the forum.
All right. Mr. Budde.
I know I'm not like the others. I've never had a presidential appointment, never had an office on Capitol Hill or a lobbying contract or even a seat on the DNC itself. But I know how to do this job. We talk about a turnaround. I led a turnaround in a city that was listed as one of America's 10 dying cities and is now growing at its fastest pace in a generation. We talk about running and winning elections. I've been able to run and win not just for myself with an 80% re-election, but getting other candidates, including fantastic women candidates, to run and win even in Mike Pence's Indiana, and that feels good. I must be doing something right because among the people who've actually done the job, former DNC chairs, more of them are backing me than anyone else on this stage, even though they'd never heard of me before I got into this thing. This is personal for me. My freedom to marry my partner is on the line. His mother's life-saving chemotherapy and the ability to buy it is on the line. My ability to live knowing I won't be sent back to war as a reservist for a dumb reason on the whim of a careless president is on the line. This is personal for all of us, for one reason and another. And that's why there's never been tougher, there's never been a better time to be a Democrat, and I would be proud to lead your Democratic Party. Thank you.
Allow me to thank you once again for your fearless fight for equality for all people, including women, and all people. Fact is that if we're going to protect Planned Parenthood, protect the woman's right to choose, if we're going to protect wages of American people, and if we're going to make sure that we have true economic prosperity for all, we have got to win elections. And let me tell you, I've won 13 elections myself, but also my governor is a Democrat because we spiked the vote in my district. My Secretary of State, because we increased the vote in my district. Matter of fact, young lady named Erin May Quaid she used to work for me, but now she's Representative Erin May Quaid as of about a month ago because we trained her and put her in front so she could lead. In this particular race, I've raised the resources I need, but I've gotten 25,000 separate donations because I know how to raise the money to help drive the Democratic Party. So I just ask you to join the 750,000 people who have signed a petition for me to be DNC chair because we got a lot of work to do. We got to turn this country around and reclaim our democracy. Thank you.
Such gentlemen. So I am embracing the joy of rebuilding our party in so many ways, but I'm also concerned. I am concerned that the bravery exhibited by the young woman who stood up was not recognized as such. And I'm concerned that we don't understand as Democrats that the energy and the passion that is happening in the streets, that we have become out of touch and insular, and we need to find a way to make those connections. There's a lot of talk about transformation in this election. A transformational leader is not anointed by the status quo. She is not the compromise candidate you settle for with a sigh to avoid addressing the realities and challenging work ahead. A transformational leader isn't afraid to speak uncomfortable truths, to break a few eggs, and to lay out a bold vision for the future. She has no time for merely fussing around the edges of change. She pushes us to dream bigger than we ever dared to. And so as we head towards the 100th anniversary of women getting the right to vote, as DNC chair, I want us to set a voter turnout moonshot. We can no longer accept the constraints of the past. We need to aim high for 80% turnout in 2020 and start laying that groundwork in 2017. But we also have to set a gender parity moonshot, because if we continue along the path we are at right now, we will not have gender parity until 2080. And ladies and gentlemen, that is unacceptable. So I want to be a champion for women who are the backbone of this party so that they are trained, celebrated, and mentored. And thank you for doing that here at the WNDC.
Thank you. I want to thank our timekeeper because I know she's doing some work tonight. Listen, there's not much we want to learn from the Republicans, but we can learn something from them because they've been winning elections for this past decade. And what they have done is, instead of going the status quo route, they've gone to state parties to look for leadership at the RNC. Because if you're going to build a party, then you need to have someone who's building a party each and every day, and that's a state party chair. We need a builder, someone who understands that. We need an organizer, not just organizing rallies, but organizing the diversity of our party. Democrats in Vermont, Democrats in West Virginia, Democrats in South Carolina, New York, California are very different because of the experiences and the culture within those states. And we need to respect that and understand that. It's the greatest asset that we have as a party, but it also creates challenges as well. We need a visionary, someone who understands that we have to look past 2 years and 4 years down the road. That's what the Republicans do. Last but not least, we need a fighter. Not just someone who can fight against Donald Trump, because we're all going to do that. But we need someone who has been fighting their entire lives, fighting to make sure that they can live the American dream and that others can also live that. I bring those attributes to this chairman's race, and I hope I get your support.
Since Donald Trump became president, an undocumented mom in Phoenix of 2 U.S.-born children who was just keeping her head down got deported. Since Donald Trump became president, Planned Parenthood has been put at risk. The labor movement has been put at risk. You know, politics and public service is about people. It's about helping people. That's what I've done my entire life. But we can't help people if we don't have strong parties everywhere. And that is why I am running for this job, because we need culture change in the Democratic Party. We need someone who has experience at transformation at scale, taking a complex organization and turning it around, making sure we're fighting for our values. Because when we lead with our values, that's how we get votes. Our values of inclusion and opportunity and economic security have always been the values of the Democratic Party. And when we lead with those values, and when we have a leader who can inspire, a leader who understands turnaround, that's how we prevail. That's why I'm running, and that's why I ask for your vote. Thank you.
The principal goal of this party is to elect a president. This party is the only thing standing between Donald Trump and another 4 years of Donald Trump after the first term. That process has got to be, just think about it. There are precisely 2 tickets to the White House. One is in this party and one is in the other party. That process has got to be impartial as per our charter, and that's got to continue throughout the process. I put in a proposal to the DNC over the weekend, which was approved by Seth Waxman, former Solicitor General of the United States, giving the party the ability to prevent a concession too early of the presidential race. Take a look at the website. The proposal is there. There's also a research tab on my website pointing out a number of election protection issues, too complex to discuss in 60 seconds. There are problems with the whole process of the election in this country also. Please read them. This party has got to get organized locally. We've got to protect the entire election process because that is the only legitimate means by which the power to govern is conferred in this country. Thank you very much.
Tough act to follow, right? So I'll give it the 60 seconds. I'm the one candidate on here that probably doesn't want to be DNC chair because for 30 years, the DNC chair has been a manager, an administrator. What we've been lacking is leadership, vision, and inspiration. And I have not been fighting for that particular position. I want to fight for a position that actually inspires the people in this room. The women in this room are the single most talented and successful women in the party and in this country, in all areas, STEM, medicine, education. And I want to simply be that guy who gets to rein you back in so the rest of us can catch up. Because that's what we need. I don't need to give you an extra seat at the table. You already have it. I don't need to empower you to run for office because you're already doing it. All I need to do is open the doors and allow you to do what you do best, win. Thank you.
Again, I want to thank the Women's National Democratic Club for this invitation. And before I move, I'm a Washingtonian, and my mayor has just come in, Mayor Bowser. So I get to live another day. Success without democracy is improbable. Democracy without women is impossible. This man did not say that. Madeleine Albright said that. And it's so true. The Democratic Party needs to reach out, reach down, reach back, reach up to everyone in this nation. We cannot move forward leaving other people behind. And so with that, I ask for your support. I ask that you consider Robert Vincent Bronnham, who believes and supports women running for office, unafraid to stand with women, and will support women for elective office. Thank you very kindly. May God bless you all.
Thank you very much. I'm going to request the mayor to come and say a few words. And thank you so much. I'm going to relieve you too because you've been standing now for a very long time. Thank you so much.
Well, good evening, Democrats. Are we on?
As I said earlier, the governor of the District of Columbia.
Well, good evening, Democrats. Let's give the candidates a big round of applause and thank them for their willingness to put themselves out there and to represent us. And I want to thank all of you for being here to take interest in what we're doing. We recognize firsthand in Washington, D.C. that we need people in the Congress and the White House that respect democracy, right? Respect the rule of law and want to make sure everybody has a seat at the table and a way to participate. I've spent just about, hello, Madam Chair, our chairwoman. I spent about every day since the election talking to people about how we have to protect and preserve our values in Washington, D.C. And that's why it's so important that our party can carry that message across the nation. People in Washington have already been standing up, speaking up, and fighting about how we can work with our leaders in the Congress and our leaders in the White House. And so many of us are focused on the things that we have to do in 2018 and beyond. So we are energized by the interest in everyone who wants to lead the party, and we want to stand behind people who are going to focus on the needs that we identified in this last election. I had an opportunity to go to several states to support the secretary, and just in those limited visits, I can see the work that we have to do. We know what we're doing on the East Coast and the West Coast and in urban areas, but let's remember, we are a big tent party, and our values are big enough to support everybody, but we have to remind them and tell them what we believe in. And then they will be with us too. God bless you all and good luck.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Can we give a really big hand to all our contestants?